It's Wednesday, March 4th, 2026, and from the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, this is Pennsylvania Legacies. I'm Josh Wallerson. Each summer in Harrisburg, environmental and sustainability initiatives from around the state are celebrated at the Governor's Awards for Environmental Excellence. It's one of 4 awards dinners organized each year by PEC to honor worthy individuals and groups for their contributions. But unlike our regional events in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Northeast PA, the Governor's Awards recognizes projects from all over Pennsylvania, and awardees are selected by the Department of Environmental Protection to represent the very best work being done by communities, local governments, and the private sector. Now, if you look through the lists of Governor's Award winners from over the years, one name comes up over and over again: Middletown-based Phoenix Contact USA. That's the U.S. subsidiary of the German electrical engineering developer and manufacturer of the same name, and they're not just a model of corporate sustainability in their own right. They also represent the vast opportunity for technological innovators in Pennsylvania's transition to clean energy. Phoenix Contact doesn't just design and build the electrical components and building automation systems needed for everything from corporate office parks to hyperscale data centers. They also put their best work into practice in their own facilities, implementing cutting-edge solutions for improving efficiency, reducing waste, and yes, even generating their own renewable energy on campus. Where other companies might invest in sustainability projects to save money or manage their public image, for Phoenix Contact, it's integral to the business itself. Their Pennsylvania headquarters isn't just a green workplace, it's a showroom for their products and a proving ground for the solutions they offer. Those practices have earned Phoenix Contact 5 Governor's Awards since 2013, most recently last year for a solar-powered electrical vehicle carport that offers EV driving employees free charging while at work. Over the years, they've won honors for other EV infrastructure improvements, also rooftop solar installations, and a 1 megawatt combined cooling, heating, and power system. And that's just a small sample of what they've installed in their own facilities. Russ Kolchek is building automation engineer for Phoenix Contact USA, and Andrew Griesmer is their facilities and security manager. They're our guests on this episode to talk about the company's commitment to sustainability, the thinking behind it, and what they have planned for the future.
Phoenix Contact, we're a manufacturer of products specifically for electrification, networking and automation, and those can range from connectors and terminal blocks to power supplies and surge protectors. Also communications, monitoring equipment, software and hardware that controls those applications like PLCs and automation. We're based right out of Harrisburg area, Pennsylvania. We're manufacturing on site. We also have multiple disciplines on site like product development, shipping, logistics.
The sales office is here as well. So it's a pretty sizable. Manufacturing is about 105,000 square feet of production space. That local manufacturing gives us a little bit faster, more personalized service for the U.S. customers. And then the automated distribution center is about 120,000 square feet, ships globally, including within U.S., Mexico, Canada, South America as well. Pretty sizable campus here at the headquarters. We also have offices in Houston, Texas, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Irvine, California.
So a considerable footprint, and I think you're doing interesting things around sustainability in certainly some, if not all of those locations, and we're going to talk a bit about that. I think, a company like yours in the space that you're in right now is an interesting time to be in business in Pennsylvania, and especially with the focus that you've given to sustainability, energy efficiency. You're the kind of company that we're interested in talking to and would like to shine a light on. So why don't you talk a bit about broadly Phoenix Contact's goals for sustainability? Why is it important, to the company, especially given the kind of work that you do?
So sustainability goals, in this one, I think you hear a lot, especially from other facility managers and in the business, is the Phoenix Contact value chain to be carbon neutral by 2030. And, lofty for everybody, I think, but our corporate strategy for 2030 makes it clear that we intend to be actively contributing to a world worth living in. And that includes our actions with the global framework, such as, UN's Sustainable Development Goals, and operating in ways that protect resources, reduce emissions, and strengthen our communities here.
Particularly also, I'll mention, we have a huge presence in the renewable energy sectors. So, solar, wind generation, we have our products are sold and utilized in those. So it kind of, helps us look good in that atmosphere that we're also participating in that renewable energy sector, and it's important to us for that to follow those same goals and strategies.
And I think it's kind of awesome to walk the talk, if you will, too, in that sense of some of the projects we'll hopefully get to talk about here with you is our products are in some of the projects and some of the environmental work that we've done, even just controls or whatever that looks like. And it's an awesome thing to be a part of, self-producing and being involved in the projects as not only just as a showcase for our customers, but also just for our local environment.
It makes it so much easier to approach those projects and approach those things when the corporate philosophy is behind you. When they're pushing that with you, it's not like you have to strive. You're not fighting against the grain there.
We're definitely going to drill down on some of these projects that you've done, especially the ones that have gotten recognition from DEP and PEC via the Governor's Awards. You've racked up several of those. We want to look at those specific projects, but taking a step back, broadly speaking, across the company, what are the overall accomplishments in terms of improved energy efficiency, reduced carbon emissions? You kind of laid out the goals. What is the overall progress toward those goals right now, and what have you learned in that process?
Sure. First of all, I'll start off with the building automation is a big part where I play a factor in increasing efficiency and reducing some of those emissions. And so things that we've done locally, such as working on lighting upgrades. And our whole department is kind of responsible for that. We have our on-site electrical staff who handle the upgrades of LED lights. We've been here on site for 1980s, so this building has old portions of it that are continuously, we're working on upgrading, like LED lighting fixtures, getting old. There's still some tube lights. Don't massacre us here, but we still have some of that. But we're actively working. Each year, we budget money to do replacement sections of the facility to upgrade to LED lights. And then I help work with the control systems for the lighting automation. So not only just getting the lights improved for energy, but we're also actively using occupancy systems so that we're not using the lights as much, reducing our energy consumption even further with those. And then we also do the BAS upgrades. That's something I have a direct hand in as well. And we are actively trying to upgrade our mechanical systems for efficiency, reviewing them, keeping an eye on them, such as adding heat exchangers for outdoor air, mixtures, so that we don't rely less on mechanical heating and cooling whenever necessary. And also looking at improvements to our air handling systems, where we can get better economizer operations. Again, using more of the natural environment to cool the space when we don't have to use mechanical cooling. And then things like using demand-based ventilation, which is very popular to upgrade. Systems that were done 10 or 15, 20 years ago didn't have those types of features. Newer ones typically do. And so we also are retroactively going back to some older equipment and making improvements for those equipment to have things like CO2 monitoring, so we can do demand-based ventilation and more strategies like that. But those are a few examples.
And these are all examples of not just things that you're doing on campus, but these are technologies that you're helping others incorporate and actively out there selling. Is that right?
Yeah, our building automation control stuff helps. We have products in the building automation realm as well. And so we're utilizing a lot of those same products to make these things happen in our facility, and then sharing that and sharing that knowledge and those products out as well.
Can you think of an example where you were able to understand and address a customer need on the basis of things you've already done and how you've experienced firsthand, were able to kind of make that case for them, walk them through a problem?
There is something uniquely with the lighting systems that we've done. We have a building automation control we sell that's Emalytics, and that runs the commonly used Niagara framework. And one of the things that we have is a DALI configuration module that you can utilize that for lighting control. So a lot of vendors, customers are already using the Niagara framework for their building automation controls. So we simply make it easy to add that additional lighting control aspect on. That becomes hard in today's bid spec design to be able to do that, because your lighting and your electrical and your mechanical are separate in your divisions in your master architectural spec, which is what all projects are bid to. So it makes it nice for the building automation companies, and I've worked with some locally to let them know and teach them how to use that system as kind of a way to come back and get controls of lighting systems that they can do after the end of the project, because it's hard to get done during the bid process. We have to provide that spec product, but usually they have to come back around, and if it's cost savings for them, they can make that work for the customer.
Looking at your impressive record with the Governor's Awards for Environmental Excellence, and most recently, you all were recognized last year for a project you did at your headquarters that was a solar carport EV charger. So it was like checking multiple boxes, right? Electrical vehicles, renewable energy. Tell me a bit about that project, what went into it, what the technologies were involved, your cost and the savings that resulted from it.
Sure. Yeah. So this is a good one, and we're kind of working. We'll work newer and then go back in time as the Governor Awards were. So this is the newest edition of 10 EV charging stations. There's a 220 kilowatt capacity battery system with this one. That's a little bit different than what we've done in the past, and I think that's really neat technology to talk about as well. So we can dive into the battery backup systems a little bit more too. But the actual solar system is 112.5 kilowatts, the system itself. So it can produce about 1.2 megawatt per year. So it's an awesome generation system. It's in the parking lot, just to give you kind of like the visual. It's in the parking lot. It's got the steel structure, puts it up. It's on the appropriate engineered angle to collect as much sunlight as possible throughout the day. There's no pivoting or rotation of the PV panels themselves, but it's an awesome system. It's a decent size. I think you fit maybe double the amount of cars under that canopy, if you will, but there are 10 stations now, and there's actually another area for battery storage. So we could double that capacity in battery storage. And I think that's a unique system in itself, just because the battery storage is new to us, and it consumes a lot of space, right? So that's the hard part about moving forward in the energy efficiency sector is the space, the capital up front, and how do we continue to progress through our sustainability. But the battery is a great thing. You can store that energy even when you're not using, right? So like 5 o'clock, if people start heading home, you still get some sunlight in the summertime, stored in that battery bank. Next morning, you're good to go. It's just a different use than the direct use that we tend to see in all of our other projects. The direct use it's great. Like, don't get me wrong, it's awesome. We'll talk about the rooftop. Our logistics center, entire roof is covered in panels. Awesome project, but there's no storage. It's direct use. So it's just a different technology, and it allows for us to have even more efficiency than we've seen previously. Don't get me wrong, we use all that direct energy because it's a big campus. But
for the car charging, we're in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I mean, we get solar, but we don't get it every day, right?
Yeah.
So having that battery storage is nice, so the cars can always charge every day.
And it's kind of interesting. Russ and I, we did prep a little bit and pulled some data through our controllers, and we found that there's roughly 1,000 kilowatt hours per week use currently. And when we rolled them out, they've been kind of active. Obviously, we did the project a year ago, so they've been pretty active. But we've actually seen our employee usage climb within that. So cool statistics and cool data that we're actually able to pull back through some of our controllers. I think we're currently sitting at 27 employees currently using our campus stations. I know I've defined this as 10 stations, but this is 10 additional stations. We do have other stations, so that way the numbers kind of add up. There are enough stations currently, but 10 of them are within this new canopy. So additional to that, we're trying to work on our fleet. So from a facilities standpoint, it's always difficult to have a fleet and a carpool. The fleet itself is kind of facilities use, work trucks, et cetera, for some of the stuff that we're doing, maintenance. And then the carpool is rentals, customer usage, sales usage, marketing usage. So it's kind of interesting and awesome that we have tried to work towards an EV fleet to help with some of that environmental sustainability as well. So we're sitting at 3 fleet vehicles currently that are all electric.
Yeah, so your entire fleet, or at least a sizable chunk of it at some point, will be electric, and you'll be powering it with your own homemade electrons, right?
Yeah. And that's the goal, right? We're slowly getting there year over year. That's the end game, hopefully, is to get there, all electric fleet. We're charging here on campus.
In the meantime, I got to think this is a selling point for your hiring as well. I'm guessing employees are going to be kind of interested, by the opportunity to charge while they're at work, day or night, regardless of weather? And I wonder if it also, are you seeing among your existing employees more adoption of electric vehicles?
I would say for sure, because that number 27 current usage, that's actuals. And we checked that yesterday, but I can tell you before that, it might have been half what we had. So we do have, an employee policy where if you're using an EV and you're going to use the stations, we just have some policies that you sign and keep track of that. So that's almost doubled, I would say, in the past couple of years. So yeah, it's definitely, it's a big deal. And I think the employees have definitely gravitated towards the use.
Yeah, we definitely embraced it. And one thing we didn't cover, and this is kind of for now, hopefully this doesn't get me in trouble, but we don't charge for the EV charging for the employees. So the employees get free of charge, get to top off their EV when they come in and park. So yeah, it would be considered a benefit, something you get for free to be able to do. And then so we've seen growth and we've seen more people buying EVs. And we also are putting the EV charging station close to the building so that you do have an EV, you have a nicer, closer parking spot as well. So we're actively trying to incentivize that by making these design choices.
And I guess you also kind of get those sort of secondary passive benefits. You've got a shady place to park your car now, so while your battery's getting topped up, your car is not heating up when it's a sunny, hot day out there. Those things.
It's under the canopy. Yeah,
might help with a little bit of the rain and some of the snow maybe that we've been seeing. So
nice. There's benefits to driving EV here.
Definitely, and I think it's also an interesting topic of the charging. I'm not sure what local. You can't call them gas stations as much anymore, but charge stations, right? Like, so some of the areas, if you see any of the local players in the gas market have adopted some charging stations as well. So I'm sure that they are charging for the charge, excuse the double, but I'm sure that they are. And it's interesting too. We, as a corporate, Germany founded the original Phoenix Contact 1923. So us being a subsidiary in 1980 at that point, I think Russ said that earlier too, but there's a different utility and government regulations in Germany. So there is a mandate to charge. They do have to charge. So it's just different with our utility. So I think it's kind of a unique play that it's possible that we could see that in the future. But for now, it's been a huge incentive. And I do believe we won a commuter service award a few years ago.
You talk about the European standards, and this is one of the things that we keep hearing, that like Pennsylvania really needs to get behind renewable energy, not just for our own economic reasons, our own, emission reduction goals, et cetera, but because Pennsylvania manufacturers are competing in markets where those standards exist. And if you're exporting to some countries, like, you have to be able to show this was made in a sustainable way. This was made, here was the carbon footprint. All that has to be documented.
Oh yeah. I mean, globally, we're serving customers globally. So depending on on where they're headquartered, they may be required to seek those specific requirements for their products. But we're definitely, by making our, one of the things we didn't talk about was our waste mitigation. That maybe Andrew could talk about that a little bit. We're making sure that the life cycle of a product is a renewable process as well. So we're trying to follow that life cycle process where the product is able to be recycled, or when it comes end of life, come back, get broken down and get recycled, or find its way to its proper waste streams.
And I think the waste streams it's a great topic as well. And you'll have to forgive us too from the facilities perspective. We have an EHS department, and I know purchasing, our strategic purchasing group, also does a lot with those items, specifically with the procurement and logistical analysis from where our parts go, what parts come in. So I think that hits it. But I know for a fact, some of the facts that the EHS group has been working on and has worked on for the past is zero waste to landfill for residual waste. And I think that's because we are processing trash at the Harrisburg incinerator for the conservation of waste to energy. So they have done a ton of work in the waste streaming and collecting. And Russ said that too. You're breaking out plastics, metals. There's no commingled. So there's just a lot of work that the EHS group here at Phoenix has done. And I don't want to speak too much to it and miss something that they're doing, because they're putting a lot of hard work into these things. But those are the couple of things from the waste side that I know that we're doing that do contribute to all of that.
So they're the experts. We want to make sure that you know of it, but we're not the experts in it. But we know that they are working incredibly hard to make that happen. Where we, as a facility group, kind of come into play in that waste mitigation is we by waste mitigation we try to reduce what we consume for renewables. And so, like for instance, domestic water is something that we use domestic water, and that's directly goes into the waste stream eventually, right? We use it for our building, we use it for our cooling systems. It's used that way. So what things that we do in facility management actively is one of the things that we didn't have from past years is we're adding water metering. So our domestic water supply, we're sub-metering it, so we have that data rather than just looking at the bill. We can look at the data, and then we can then bring that into our alarm systems and our monitoring systems, and we can log it, store it, look at the data, but also we can set our own alarm levels so that if we're consuming heavy amounts, we can start to investigate why we're doing so and try to. It's almost like if you measure it, then you can kind of make it a game where you can try to reduce that number as low as possible, like playing golf with your water supply.
That goes back to the whole BAS systems themselves and continuing to enhance said BAS systems. I've seen a lot of facilities done a bunch of construction, and that's not one that everybody does, is the water metering to that level. It's a big deal to get those notifications because it can be something, and I mean, other facility managers will definitely resonate with this. Cooling towers are tough to manage. There's fill levels, there's balancing to the cooling tower, especially if you have multiple in tandem. It's really a tough thing, but if you get a notification, you can start investigating earlier and save a ton of water. So it's a really big deal, and it's shown a lot of value for us.
Well, and that's worth noting, I guess, that we've just been through, going back to the example of the solar charging carport, all these reasons, secondary reasons, climate related, employee recruiting and retention, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, there is a cost benefit analysis, I assume, that goes into it. Can you talk a bit about that and what sort of the upfront cost for some of these investments looks like? And then what does that look like on the other end? What kind of savings are you realizing as a result?
So just because of the age of some of the projects, I don't have all of the entire upfront. So I've personally, we should have done this in my intro as well, just with what we did, but I've been with the company for 5 years. So some of these predate me, and I have information just based on the systems and what I've seen. And I can tell you about the PV cells and some of that stuff just from my fun engineering background, and Russ is the same, obviously. But some of the cost stuff is just, I don't have that data on me, but I can allude to some of the savings. And I do know some of the projects that I came into. For example, the rooftop on the LCA, our logistics center, that entire PV array is quite large. It's generates an average of 1.2 million kilowatt hours annually. So I know that project was absolutely massive. I could speculate and I could give you a construction estimate maybe, but I know for a fact that the grant money and savings was the key factor to doing that project. So when you see those capital investments, especially from the facilities budgeting side, I'm looking at I'm going to ballpark you, just call a project $1.5 million to do any of this type of work, right? I mean, that's throwing
at that scale.
At that scale, you're throwing a dart at the board there at that number. But if you could get a grant for even 50% of that or under 50%, let's say 50 is your max cap, but there's a lot of grants out there that are in the ballpark. And I will talk to one of them at some point, at least. That Act 129 changed the game for the utility sector here in PA. And I've worked with that a lot, even from the contracting and construction aspect prior to my time at Phoenix Contact. It's an awesome program. I think even in just that program alone, you could realize maybe 40% of that. So I'm circling back here. You're talking 1.5 and you're getting 40% of that as grant payback because you're reducing the infrastructure load for the utility. That's incredible. And really, when you think about that, that's me talking to the CFO then and saying, hey, this project actually doesn't cost 1.5. We're going to realize an incentive, and that lowers it. And then we start talking about my capital budget, and things are starting to get some traction, and the approval rates are looking awesome for that. So it really incentivizes us to do those large scale projects.
When we did the rooftop solar array, that big project, and that's it's about a megawatt of energy on the solar side. We were looking at about a 7-year return on investment to get our money back out of that system. When we realized that the state and federal grants for solar at that time, now this was, this was built in like what 2022, and so at that time we still had some good solar incentives. That reduced our ROI to around 4.5 years, and we've consistently gotten that 1.2 megawatt hours of power every, or sorry, 1.2 million kilowatt hours of energy every year consistently. So the predictions on that, it's like clockwork. The solar system is very consistent. And so we know our ROI is going to hit that 4.5 years. The data we've received is that it's producing exactly as expected. So that makes it easy to sell that product. And then in fact, receiving those from the state and federal level is what kicked off the purchase from the corporate side to say, go ahead. It's because we didn't just dream this up. We were waiting on the right financial time to make this purchase. That was 100% the go point from the corporate side of it to say, okay, let's spend the money, let's buy the solar panels, inverters, the whole system.
I imagine those decisions are being made well before the relatively recent and quite dramatic increase in electricity prices that we're seeing in the PJM region. And looking at the forecasts ahead, those savings have got to be that much more remarkable,
Sweeter.
I would think.
It's much more sweeter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's the cool part about the solar array too is it's for from a facility maintenance management and PM planning. It's low maintenance. They, like Russ said, they're just year over year. It's just this. It's producing appropriate results.
Yep. It's very stable, very low maintenance.
Low maintenance. And I think one of the cool ones too is you can equate that 1.2 kilowatt hour to 847 metric tons of CO2 reduction. It's cool. It's an awesome factor. And we talk about that year over year, and you start compounding that the more years that it's active and it doesn't degrade, you keep those same figures. So it's really neat.
So when it comes around to looking at another project, it's an easy sell to say, hey, right now solar is a good investment for our facility, our generation, our sustainability.
But I guess you're also investing in some resiliency at a time when the grid reliability is not something you can just take for granted. If there were interruptions in your power supply, or you have some insurance, you have the ability to make your own.
Correct. Absolutely, and I'll double down on that. From 2013, actually, there is a CHP on site here, which is our clean energy power generating source, and it's composed of 5 200 kilowatt capstone microturbine packages in a single containment with hot exhaust utilization to produce 300 tons of exhaust. That's on the chilled side. So there's a sidearm chiller on that, and then also it produces 5,000 MMBTU of hot water. So if you run down that system, it's a really neat system, and it also is another area of self-generation. So you're using that natural gas usage as well, but you're also reclaiming the exhaust off of that. So again, 2013 is different. We didn't quite have the EV technology. We started a project in 2013 with the EV, and that was a smart card charging station. We can talk about that one a little bit too, but the CHP system coming in 2013 that's a big deal, and it's got some age on it now, but at the time that was an ROI of 6 years as well, just for the payback. But I think the coolest part about that system is saying that you have microturbines in a bank producing electricity, but you're reclaiming all of the exhaust. So the exhaust is going in through an absorption chiller. You're using that to send chilled water to the plant instead of a centrifugal chiller, which you would see in another system. And what's not used via valve can go through and then hit another heat exchanger. And when you're hitting that heat exchanger with that exhaust from the microturbines, that's producing the hot water. And in a campus this size, you might need cold and hot all at the same time. We have manufacturing spaces that might need some cooling. You got data centers. We have all kinds of IT spaces. All of that space can use the chilled water even in the winter. And we can talk about heat exchangers and all that stuff within the system. But that system itself generates also a megawatt. So I mean, I kind of blew through that 200 kilowatt per 5, but there's a megawatt generation within that in itself. It's a really unique system, and you just don't see a lot of those CHP systems. So for 2013, and that still being a source of power generation here today is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Does that also create opportunities for savings or efficiencies in your office space HVAC? Are you able to sort of passively heat and cool the human habitats as a side benefit of all that?
Oh, yeah. I want to talk to you about that because,
Yeah.
well, with all that energy recovery, right? So we're burning natural gas to get electricity, obviously, for the building, but with recovering the exhaust heat off of that system, we're able to both heat and cool off of that exhaust and recover that energy, and that would normally just be wasted out the rooftop, vents, right? And so we use that heat to reheat most of the facility during the rest of the year. Like it probably does about 30, like 75% of our heating needs for our facility most of the year round. Obviously, when we get into the colder months, like recently, we need to run some boilers to keep up. But the rest of the time, most of that heat that we need is coming off the what would normally be a wasted exhaust, and we're reheating our facility. And we have this building, we have heat load, cooling load, both all year round, varying with the seasons, but we have the needs to create heating and cooling for our facility all year round. And we also have 24 hours of operation. We're running 3 shifts for our manufacturing and logistics areas. So, we have those challenges of like, we don't really shut down and go to bed and come back the next day. We're running a 24-hour facility. So we have to those efficiencies that we can find are kind of multiplied across 3 shifts of operation.
And I kind of just want to touch base on the enormity of that. Is you'd have so many boilers running at campus, you would be using that natural gas to run all of your boilers. Anyway, so you're putting that natural gas within an energy curation, and that energy alleviates the grid, all the sustainable things that we've talked about already from the utility. Alternatively, I mean, I guess this is talking to other facility managers out there. It's just the enormity of this is so much that you're creating energy while reducing the boiler usage from the natural gas. I don't know if it's a wash. It's a really interesting engineering study to look at. But alternatively, then you're talking about electric heat pumps, and then you're talking we need to double our EV right now, our PV technically, all of our cells. We need to double that, and we would be an entire drain on the grid. So I think there's a way to get there, right? To become completely carbon neutral and get off of the gas. And I think there's a path potential. So, yeah. But like the enormity of what other groups are doing and how reliant we are on boilers to do everything, and getting to crossing that bridge to getting to heat pump technology or where we need to be there.
Yeah, it's moving towards electrification. That's a topic where that's one of our global topics in our mission statements, right? It's moving towards an all electric society.
And I just think that's amazing for 2013 to kind of be already halfway there, to not just direct use of natural gas is an awesome way to be, and to continue supporting that system too.
I think from the energy standpoint, to what you had kind of said earlier, when we're running our CHP system, and we also have the solar generation, those two are able to carry the load of our facility, so that we're not sipping off the grid when we have, albeit good sunny day, because the CHP cannot handle the load of our facility by itself. But when we added the extra megawatt of power from the solar, now when both systems are running, feeding our facility, we're not drawing off the grid. So we're self-sustaining for so many hours a day. And we would like to see that grow more and more to where the grid is more of just a backup for us, and we're generating all of our own sustainable energy.
So, I mean, all of these cool things you're doing on your own campus justify themselves, right? It's like they pay for themselves sometimes quicker than you might have thought. There's so many reasons just for your own purposes as a company to make these kinds of investments. But obviously, we also talked about how this is part of how you market your products. You're walking the walk, and that enables you to talk the talk to others. I guess I'm wondering, like, as you're working with your customers, other businesses, institutions, large energy consumers, what changes are you seeing? Is industry adopting the kinds of improvements that you are, the companies that you work with anyway, obviously? What has been the broader influence, I guess, out there? Where are we on the path to the all-electric society or something like it?
Sure. I think I could probably say we've been leading the way as a manufacturer in the area. And I've had a chance to talk with a lot of numerous manufacturers through some of the organizations that we participate in, like SESME, the Smart Manufacturing Association, We've hosted, events here, got a chance. I've presented at some of them, talking about some of the things that we're doing as a manufacturer, hoping to put those cases out in front of them to show, hey, well, this is what we can do. This is what sustainability does, and how we're doing it. Maybe you can follow the lead that we're putting out there and find out your use cases. I'm finding that manufacturers in our space are very hungry to do so, but a cost, it has to be factored in. It has to be something that they can get a return on their investment in a reasonable amount of time. They're more than happy to invest the resources as long as there is a reasonable payback. And so things like solar are like a no-brainer. Things like the CHP is very, very good. Things that we've researched that we would love to see like more work done is something like the wind generation on the commercial side. Not so much the wind farms, but something that we can attach to our facility to generate additional kilowatts of power to add to our renewable source, other sources. So maybe when the sun's not shining, hopefully the wind is blowing, and we can continue to use those kilowatt hours of energy that are generated in a renewable way. That's where we would love to see that kind of go. But I personally seen a lot of interest from manufacturing associations, and they're looking for things that they can do now. If manufacturers out there aren't reaching out and looking, there are sustainability organizations, sustainability grants, money out there to be had. We've had a number of projects that we've spearheaded through like PP&L, and they partner with Clear Result to do like engineering analysis of your facility, of your different stuff, and then they help you get like the Act 129 application done. And so those services are out there, and if a little bit of pre-planning, you take advantage of those, and that brings your cost down. And then not only do you save money on the cost, now you're reducing your energy usage. And so if people can look for those are great opportunities to find a way to get solutions. Even if you don't even know what, they'll help you analyze the facility and figure out, because they do this all the time. They know where to find energy saving strategies in a lot of our facilities.
Well, one of those opportunities at the state level that PEC has taken a great interest in, and that I think is really just now getting off the ground finally, is the RISE PA program that DEP developed, another grant program for clean manufacturing. Is that one specifically that you're seeing interest in among your customers or even yourselves?
Oh yeah, we were highly interested in that. Last year, we became aware of the RISE. I became aware of the RISE PA and brought that up to our management. There was a limited time window for, if I recall correctly, it had to be done by the end of 2025. You had to have your project submitted. And we have a current project fortunately, we had a current project in the pipeline for a chiller replacement and some upgrades to the mechanical systems for that chiller to operate efficiently. And we didn't quite make the deadline for that. I would like to see something like RISE PA maybe have a little bit larger window, because with these larger mechanical systems, I can't stress enough, we don't just dream them up and plan them in a few months. Like it's probably a 2-year process between concept, finding capital funding within the company to execute the project, and then the last year is typically the execution of the project, sometime in that time frame, depending on the size. But you almost need more time with the application process to get these approved. And we were looking to go for RISE, but we just couldn't make it within the time frame.
But it sounds like the appetite is there.
Certainly is. And to Russ's point, doing some projects like that, especially when you have multiple mechanical systems, the BAS stuff alone, the controls work to integrate something new or even retrofit can be time consuming. It's a lot of engineering work. You're getting all those controls, and we thrive on that as a company too. Phoenix wants to be and is in some of those panels, some of those controllers. So it's a good place to be, but it takes time. It takes time to integrate those systems together and make sure everything's talking the appropriate way. So yeah, it's a heck of a project. It's a lot of engineering, but it's well worth it in the end. It's time consuming.
All of this is about innovation. It's about moving the technology forward, moving adoption forward. And you guys have been doing that year after year, making improvements at home and then showcasing that to the world. What's coming up? You alluded earlier to maybe getting some wind generation going at your facilities. Are there any other products or technologies that are emerging that you're just getting involved with that we should be watching in the months and years ahead?
I'll just put out a request for the commercial wind generation industry to give us solutions, right? Like one of the reasons that we're not able to invest in that is the cost and the return on the investment is it's just not where it needs to be. When you have the solar as a competitor for that is much more reliable, much more readily available for your ROI. What is an average wind generation? Andrew knows it, and it's horrible.
Yeah, I don't want to give you any numbers on that, but it's way more years than I'll be working probably at this point is the ROIs that we've seen. And that's just because the technology is not there in the micro scale, right? We're talking about our campus, our building. We're not talking about like a field with giant, massive turbines that we can actually put up. We're talking about, a more
rooftop mounted vertical access types.
And it exists. To Russ's point, it's really awesome technology. And again, being a pioneer in that sector, we want to be a part of it. We want our components in it. So we would love to be a part of anything that's there. It's just from a technological standpoint, we're just not quite where I could see the industry or other facility managers being interested in that, just because the payback's not there. But let's get it there. I guess that's my
if that's an investment to make,
yeah.
That would be a great, if there's anybody from government listening, that would be a great investment to make, because there's companies like us that are hungry for additional renewable energies, and wind is a potential. I think continuing to invest in solar is great, because I could see us looking at more solar here. I think possibilities of another canopy, another rooftop, something like that, where we could increase our generation of solar, because it's not carrying our building, right?
Sure.
It's a portion. It's a sizable percentage, but it would be great if we had more of that was completely renewable. And then to go along with the solar, I think we naturally would be looking at battery storage at some point. Right now, we consume that generation from the solar panels. It's all consumed within our building load. So we don't really have an overage of solar production. But if we increase that further, we get to the point where we're making it, there's times where we're overproducing. We would love to store that locally and then draw back off that like in the evening or something.
Absolutely. And for me, that's a great perspective too, is the battery storage is a wonderful thing for the future. I think there's a possibility there. And as we've seen with technologies over the past, things get smaller. Think about the phone and the computer and all the things that we've seen in the past. So I think the battery maybe someday could be on the same track. And I think that makes it even more usable. So being a part of that innovation and seeing that battery storage could be less of a footprint consumption, because as we talk about building management, we talk about space management, we talk about capital upfront costs with the battery. But I think as time continues and technology advances, I think that's something that should be on our radar and a lot of other people's radar that use EV, any kind of solar panels.
So making those investments, getting it to where it needs to be for more widespread adoption, irrespective of all that, is it also kind of goes to the larger point about diversification, right? Even if you have some wind generation that isn't, up to scale necessarily, it is part of a mix. It's part of a portfolio of energy sources that you can rely on.
I think you need to distribute across that. Like we don't have a guarantee that we're going to have solar every day, right? Because we know where we live, and we have a lot of cloudy days. So we can't always depend on that renewable energy being available constantly. So hopefully, if you get a good mix, you get a good percentage of all of those coming across your distribution grid, and you have a good renewable energy coming from multiple sources.
In some way, that redundancy of your own microgrid is really like the strategy, right? If we could pull up, a Niagara-based platform, pull it up internally, and we could see our own microgrid and which stream of energy that we're using, renewable energy we're using. We could quantify that year over year. I mean, which source is getting more, which is getting a little bit less? Can we invest in one more than the other? Are we seeing a lot better of the wind stuff than we thought we would? I think those are the perspectives, and that's taking the data and actually using it too, not just garbage in, garbage out, which we see with a lot of data that we use. So this is very usable data that we would love to quantify. And
less projection, more actual data to back it up. Yeah, that would be better data to use. Right now, when you look at the system, they project. There's a lot of projected data. Well, based on where you live and this, you should probably get about this many windy days, over 5 miles per hour. You know what I mean? Where that your energy capture is going to actually happen. Mm-hmm. So getting it diversified, just like you do with your stock portfolio, I think is going to be beneficial.
Well, gentlemen, congratulations on everything that you've accomplished internally and the effect that you're having on the larger market and the larger world, and on the recognition that you've gotten, and I assume will continue to receive going forward. For all of that, thank you. And thank you for taking the time to be on Pennsylvania Legacies today.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us.
That was Andrew Griesmer and Russ Kolchak of Phoenix Contact USA, 5-time winner of the Pennsylvania Governor's Awards for Environmental Excellence. And as we speak, our team at PEC is already hard at work planning this year's Governor's Awards dinner to be held in June at the Harrisburg Hilton. Watch the events calendar on our website for details as those come together. Meanwhile, we're also gearing up for the 2026 Western Pennsylvania Environmental Awards, May 6th in Pittsburgh. Tickets for that one will be available soon. In the meantime, check the website for sponsorship and other information. It's all at pecpa.org, pecpa.org. That's all for this installment of Pennsylvania Legacies. Hope you'll join us for the next one. Until then, for the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, I'm Josh Wallerson, and thanks for listening.